Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. We do have one addition. I'll let Ashley do that.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Eggetts. Under item number 8.3.4, there was correspondence that was received after the package had been released from the Here in Perth Public Health regarding backyard chickens.
Does anyone else have anything? If not, we have a motion that the agenda as amended for November 7th, 2023 meeting of Council Township of Perth East be approved. Moved by, I'm drawing a blank, Amanda, second by Hugh. Sorry, all in favor? Carried. Okay, if you have pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as our meeting goes along. We do have 26 items under the consent agenda. Is there any item anyone has questions, would like pulled? Hugh?
Not necessarily pulled, but 518 Township McKellar. They're talking about alternate methods of providing notice. I just wondered if the township, like you're supposed to put things in a newspaper, so I assume that you can put it in Shopportunities, and does that cover you for getting your notice out?
Let me answer that. Yes, we usually put the notices in the Beacon Herald as well, or the Marketplace, depending they're connected. But that's the other newspaper avenue we use.
Okay, so it's all right to leave it?
Sorry.
Leave it there, okay, yep, all right. Anyone else have anything they want pulled? No, okay, then we have a motion that items 5.11 to 5.126 is set out the consent agenda for November 7, 2023 regular meeting of council be received for information, and the minutes of October 17, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Bob, second by Hugh, all in favor, carried. Okay, we do have one delegation tonight, and Hannah is joining us on the screen. She's the Resiliency and Steward Coordinator for the County of Perth, and she's going to talk about our electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So, Hannah, welcome to Perth East, and the floor is yours.
Good evening to your mayor and council. I am just going to share my screen here with my presentation. So if you could just give me 1 second. So thank you for having me as a delegation tonight. I'm here to talk to you about a project called Perth County Electric Pathway, which is an electric vehicle charging infrastructure project we've been working on with our local municipalities. So the community emissions in Perth County for carbon emissions, the highest category we have is on-road transportation at 37%. So this is part of the reason why this project is so important, and it also feeds into the greenhouse gas plan for the county. Also, new light-duty zero-emission vehicles and medium to heavy-duty vehicles are transitioning to be a requirement by federal government regulations. So by 2030, 60% of vehicles sold in Canada have to be zero-emission, and medium and heavy-duty vehicles are going that way as well, with 35% sold must be ZEV by 2030. So we have been working on a project called Rural Recharge, and it's a partnership across Southwestern Ontario with counties of Grey, Bruce, Huron, Perth, and Wellington to install level 3 chargers across this region to make a cohesive network. And they're level 3 chargers with a partner called Ivy Charging Network, and they're the ones that have installed the level 3 chargers across the 400 series highway in Ontario. Through this partnership, we also identified a gap in charging infrastructure in geographic Perth County for level 3 chargers and level 2 chargers. So we partnered with Community Energy Association to tender a third-party owner and operator of charging infrastructure with ZVIP grant funding, but that's turned into the local municipalities owning and operating that infrastructure. So I'm throwing around a lot of terminology here. Level 1 chargers are trickle charge, so you can plug them into any wall outlet and it'll take you 12 to 24 hours to charge your vehicle, so not ideal. Level 2 chargers are for at-home charging or for longer stops on the go. They take 4 to 10 hours to charge depending on your vehicle. And then of course, level 3 is the DC fast charge. these are perfect for tanking up on the go. If you want to stop, have a quick bathroom break, grab a coffee. They take 20 minutes to an hour to charge your vehicle. So this is an image of our 2022 network of level 3 chargers on the left and level 2 chargers on the right. And as you can see, there is a large gap in both charging infrastructures in the geographic Perth County. So why invest in level 2 chargers instead of level 3s? And the answer is we need to invest in both. So as I mentioned, level 2 chargers are great for longer visits. Say if you have a municipal lot and you can have people stay for a couple hours to charge your vehicle, or employees at the workplace, or even for garage orphans or for people who live in apartment buildings and they don't have a garage or a charger of their own, can stay and park overnight in these types of parking lots. They're inexpensive and they're easy to install for local municipalities at a price point of about $5,000 to $8,000 per port, whereas level 3 chargers are much better for travelers or people who are trying to get through Perth County, for example, going from Kitchener to Goderich for a day trip, and they want to stop in Mitchell on the way and grab a coffee, let their dog run type thing. So the hurdle of level 3s is the price point. So Earth Power Corp just installed one in Goderich, and they said it cost about $125,000 to install when everything was said and done. So it is a little bit more expensive for local municipalities to purchase these, but they are great for downtown cores, parks, visitor centers, and even things like arenas. So like any service, the diversity of chargers and planning where these chargers go is the most important part. You want to pick the right charger for the right location. In June 2023, I contacted all of the local municipalities in geographic Perth County, including Stratford and St. Mary's, and asked for a wish list of sites for level 2 chargers. We identified 38 ports across 16 sites in geographic Perth County, and we've decided that some sites were ready, meaning they had conduit in the ground and they had panel space, whereas others needed that work to be completed before they would be ready to go. So the priority for 2023 funding was given to sites that were ready to go, and those were in North Perth, St. Mary's, and West Perth. We just closed the RFP actually today for a partner on this project. And through that RFP, the local municipalities would be the owner and operator of these chargers. They would purchase a charger and then they would receive a revenue check monthly for the usage, similar to a vending machine. And the cost of that turnkey installation varies by site. So with our RFP, we've been quoted $7,500 to $7,900 per port. But we've also done some calculations based on other local counties in the area that are using these chargers, like Huron County, and in an average ROI with a charging cost of $5 an hour, you would get a profit of $370 to $423 per hour of use. So the payback on this capital investment is estimated at 12 to 18 months. And you can actually also use these chargers towards carbon credits that can be sold and used for future green initiatives in your area, which is kind of cool as we're getting into this carbon economy. So this is the process. Like an electric car, there's been a very fast acceleration, and we've kind of jumped into this project feet first as there's been funding made available to us. So we started in May 2023, and we're now in that site readiness, just closed with the RFP partner today, and then we'll be looking at installation and promotion. The chargers in phase 1 need to be installed by March 2024. So we're going in to this great with the phase 1, and then Perth East will actually be in the phase 2 of charging deployment, and we will be looking for other grants to help subsidize the purchase of these chargers. So as many of you may know, there's a new program that MTO just launched called Charge On, and they have funding for level 3 and level 2 chargers. And then, of course, ZVIP, or the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program, is also doing reiterations of that funding program year after year. So I will still be going after more funding to do the phase 2 sites. But otherwise, I would love to open it up to questions from your worship and council.
Okay, questions, Amanda?
Just 2 questions. Thank you for your presentation. I'm not super familiar with the port. So does one port support one vehicle or two? And what is the life expectancy of a port? And does that vary depending on the level 2 and the level 3?
Great question. So a port is one plug for the vehicle. A lot of pedestal units, which is the large unit, would have 2 ports, so 2 cords to plug into cars. So when we say 38 ports across 16 sites, that means that some sites have 4 ports or 2 pedestals, whereas others just have 1 pedestal with 2 ports. And the lifespan of these ports or pedestals, I'm assuming, is about the same timeline as you would get with a dryer, because they use similar electrical supply of 240. I feel like there hasn't been enough of them around long enough to do a complete life cycle analysis or to see what that lifespan would be from an asset management perspective. But I'm guessing 10 years would be a reasonable lifespan.
Okay, anything else? Anyone else? Hugh?
Was there any place in Perth East that they had spec'd out? Is there anything here?
Yep. So there was a number of sites listed for Perth East, including the municipal office and library parking lot. I think they had 3 sites in total, but Mike might be able to speak more clearly to that. As I know, there was a couple changes in the final hours of the wish list making.
Yeah, so when we, to follow up on Hannah's comments there, we identified the parking lot as another option, and the parking lot associated with the Shakespeare Optimist building as well as potential sites for locations, as well as the library in this office space. So those were the ones that we identified as having potential.
Go ahead.
Did you then, are you going for level 2 or level 3 charge?
Yeah, so that's a great follow-up question, and probably something that we'll be looking to discuss with Hannah in terms of the funding potential for the phase 2, what that looks like, and whether or not it would. I think the initial phase, it was all of the phase 2 locations, and I'm not sure, because now we're looking at a different funding stream, whether or not there's potential for the phase 3, which in my opinion would be the ideal, but they are quite expensive, so we'd want to secure the funding for that.
Okay, Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. Thanks, Coordinator Khan. It looks like a lot of work. Looking at, so in the document, it said something about return investment. So is it like a feed-in tariff type of program, or there'll be funding coming from usage, or is it just strictly the users putting their debit card in and the township or the municipality gets the money? How does the funding part work, like the ongoing funding for upkeep and maintenance work?
Yeah, certainly. So when you're a user, you would drive up to the pedestal, you would swipe your credit card, or you would use your app to engage the machine. You would charge your car for however long. It comes up with how much money you owe. That money would go to ChargePoint or FlowCharge or whoever the charger company is. They would take a cut, which I think is typically like 5 or 10%, and then you would get the rest of the profits from that charge. So that ROI calculation that I did would subtract the amount of money that it would cost you to provide that electricity as well.
So there's no, it sounds like there's no money coming from like a program, a contract program or anything. Like a feed-in tariff for the solar would be the example that I was thinking of. Does that exist right now or not really?
No, the profits would solely be generated by user fees.
Optimized yet, so we don't end up in the same situation? Or I know this is a smaller scale than theirs, but the roving blackouts and don't charge your car and go to work thing was kind of interesting when I started looking into it. So is that situation improved? Do we have the infrastructure to beef all this up, or?
As far as I know, Ontario actually produces excess power that we sell to the United States. The one thing that we would want to consult with, so level 2 chargers they have 7.2 kilowatt output. So it's about the same as running a dryer. If you were to have banks and banks of them all in a row, you would probably want to consult your local utility provider to make sure that you're not going to be overloading the system or your system in your intake. The real convolution comes with level 3s because they have such high output. When you drive past some Tesla banks and they have 6 or 7 Tesla banks all in a row and they're fast chargers, that's the type of thing that you would want to consult with your local utility to make sure that they would have the capacity to run those. But with level 2s, it's much smaller scale and it's much easier to get into the system and not worry about a lack of supply.
Thank you. Just one more quick question. It may be in the report, I didn't see it drilled down to. So how many full EV vehicles would there be in Perth County or Perth East? Do we know that number? It looks like average in Ontario would be like 4%-ish. Do we know what's local? The vehicle ownership, the registration's local?
I would love to have that stat for you. That would be a great stat to have, but I don't know off the top of my head how many people in Perth County have adopted these types of vehicles. It would be fairly simple for me to look that up, so I could always follow up with you about that. That'd be a great stat for me to have in my back pocket as well. But we did a survey with the municipality of West Perth just within our staff to see how many people currently owned EVs or hybrid electric vehicles, and to see how many people would be interested in purchasing an EV for their next vehicle. So as West Perth implements this infrastructure, they know how many staff they would want to supply for versus the public. So that might be a survey that I could share with your staff to see if they'd want to do a similar survey, at least for sites that municipal employees would be able to access this infrastructure.
No, thanks. Thanks very much. That would be a really good number to know because we're making decisions about money and stuff like that, right? So thank you.
Okay, Amanda?
Sorry, I just thought of one other question. Do these units collect data? Like how long, like how many cars use it, for how long, etc. Just curious about that.
They do. And with your dashboard or the account that you would create with the company you go with, you would be able to log on and see how many individual charges happen, for how long they charge. Any of like the personal information about the charge users you can't see that, but at least you can see the usage, and it's really interesting to review. So last night I presented this same presentation to the West Perth Council, and the one level 2 that Mitchell currently has is owned by Earth Corp, and one of our counselors is on the board of Earth. And so he pulled it up right on his iPad, just how many chargers was in the last month and for how long. And you can really do a great analysis with the technology they have through the account software.
Okay, any other questions? If not, thanks Hannah for coming. We really appreciate it. Great report. We will deal with it under new business. Oh, sorry, Amanda's got one more.
One other question. Like who pays like the credit card fees? Do you know?
I don't know, because that's all dealt with through the charger company. So whether that's a ChargePoint device or a Flow device.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of your night. Okay, we're going to move on. We have no public meetings or no public hearings. So then our next report is under planning, and we have a consent application, and Jeff, I believe, is going to present that. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Higgins. Slides up. Consent application B37-23 was submitted by John and Kara Leeskow for lands described as Lot 1, Concession 4, Northeast Hope Ward, which is known as 4426 Wilmot East Hope Road. Next slide, please. Subject lands proposed to sever a residential lot that is considered to be surplus to the farm operations needs. The purchaser of the agricultural land owns another farm located at 1940 Perth Line 43, which contains a farm residence. The original application that was submitted requested a severed portion of land with an area of 2.34 hectares and a lot frontage of 119 meters on Road 111, which is Wilmot East Hope Road. The land contains an existing dwelling, pond, cow shelter, and 3 accessory structures and services. The retained farmland would then be 37.7 hectares in area with 882 meters of frontage on Road 111. The retained lands are currently vacant and they're intended to remain in agricultural production. Planning staff did consult with the applicant to have the lot area reduced in size to an area that can now be supported by planning policy. The applicant has revised their severance sketch and they're now requesting that the severed portion is only 1.19 hectares in area. And the lands will contain just the dwelling, the pond, 3 accessory structures, and the required services. So planning staff are able to support the revised sketch, which now represents a lot that we consider to be minimal in size, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. The provincial policy statement notes that lot creation in prime agricultural areas may only be permitted for agricultural related uses, provided that any new lot will be limited in the minimum size needed to accommodate the use with appropriate water and sewage services, and if that residence is surplus to the farming operation as a result of a farm consolidation. So the applicant has now provided a revised sketch that shows only those lands that are needed to accommodate the residential use. The lands to be severed include the dwelling, garage, pond, accessory structures, and services that also include a propane line that goes out to the garage. Next slide, please. The lands to be severed are designated agricultural in the official plan. The county official plan outlines the requirements for those for surplus farm dwelling severances in the county. Planning staff are satisfied that the application meets the requirements, as the revised sketch has removed the cow shelter area and the portion of amenity space at the rear of the dwelling that includes an irrigation system. We are of the opinion that the irrigation lands should be kept as part of the retained lands and be used for agricultural activities. The proposed residential lot is limited in size. It does not include additional agricultural land more than what is required for the residential use. The subject lands contain a residence that is habitable and meets the 10-year minimum requirement. And the applicant will be required to obtain a zoning bylaw amendment from the Township of Perth East as a condition of the severance. The purchasers have also demonstrated that they own a majority share of the subject lands, that they own another farm that contains a residence. Planning staff are of the opinion that the revised sketch conforms with the surplus farm dwelling policies in the official plan. So for the zoning of the property, it's zoned agricultural A and natural resources environment zone 2. There are no existing livestock facilities on the subject lands, and the surplus residential dwelling will require the rezoning of the severed lands to conform to the zoning bylaw. So the A1 zone is utilized for single detached dwelling lots that may be deficient in the zoning regulations as part of the surplus farm dwelling severances. And the lands to be retained will require rezoning to an A5 zone, which is utilized for prohibiting any new dwelling or mobile home on the land when it's approved as part of that surplus farm house severance. Also, as a condition of the consent, condition number 4 has been included, which imposes restrictions on the future permitted uses of both the severed and retained lands through the zoning bylaw requirement. Those conditions are included to satisfy the requirements of the provincial policy statement and the county official plan. So notice of the application was given on October 6th to everyone that was within 60 meters of the lands, and a notice sign was installed on the property. We have received some correspondence back from residents. One resident asked for clarification on the application. I did attempt to provide that through a voice message to the number that was given, and we did not hear any other details or any other request back from that resident. The second resident stated that they're opposed to the consent application, and they are of the opinion that residential dwellings should not be severed from original farm parcels. Also through the circulation, Upper Thames River Conservation Authority and Blue Water Recycling has stated that they do not have any comments. And Hydro One has stated that the property is impacted by a high voltage transmission corridor, and they have no objections to the severance, provided that their easement rights are protected and still are maintained. So staff are supportive of the proposed severance. We are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the surplus farm operation as a result of the farm consolidation policy, provincial policy statement, and conforms with the policies in the official plan, subject to the recommended conditions of consent being fulfilled. As such, staff are recommending that Perth East Council recommend to the Perth County Land Division Committee or its delegate that the application for severance be supported with the conditions included in the report. I'm available to answer questions related to the application.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Questions of the report? I have one. I know you already shrunk the property, but why do you still have so much green space behind? I don't know which direction I'm going. West, there we go, west. Is that not workable at all, or what was there? Like, it almost looks like there was a pile of rocks there at one time or something.
Yes, so what has been included, so on that sketch, that was the original application, that's what was circulated. So the sketch that's now up, the revised request has the dwelling on it, and it has a small area or a minimal sized area behind the dwelling. And that was allowed to retain because there's a propane line that goes from the back of the dwelling to the garage, which is on where it kind of juts out. And then there's also lands that are to the front of the property, which is an existing pond. We felt if the pond was excluded from the residential surplus dwelling, it would probably not be maintained by whoever's operating the farm.
Okay, no, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, so if we have no questions, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the planner dated November 7, 2023, entitled Consent Application File B37-23, submitted by John and Kara Lescu for lands described as Lot 1, Concession 4, Northeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, 4426 Wilmot East Hope Road, Road 101 for information. That Council will recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve consent application file B37-23 affecting the lands as described above, subject to the conditions below. And so there are 6 conditions from Perth East. I'm going to try to condense them a little bit. Number 1, that Perth East, that all taxes have been paid in full. Number 2, that all financial requirements have been met. Number 3, that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in the area are reviewed and updated. Number 4, that an amendment to the Township of Perth East implementing zoning bylaw be added or be adopted to zone the proposed severed lot to permit only a dwelling and accessory uses, building and structure, and to zone the retained farm lot to prohibit any new permanent residential dwellings. Number 5, that the severed and retained lots each be assigned separate municipal addresses and signs. And number 6, the confirmation be received that the road access to be severed and retained parcels are to their satisfaction of the Township of Perth East. Then there are 3 conditions for the county, and they are that 1, that confirmation be received from a solicitor that the certificate of the official be scanned and attached to the electronic registration. The second one, the Land Division Committee be provided with a description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of the deed. And the third one, that confirmation be received that the property owner has entered into an agreement with the County of Perth to prohibit any new permanent residential dwellings on the retained farm lot. So we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Jeremy, second by Amanda. All those in favor? Carried. Great, thanks, Jeff. Enjoy the rest of your night. Okay, we have no reports from the CAO, so now we're going to move to the clerk, and this first one is the Section 78 report, the bond municipal drain, and I believe Eric. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, this is a Section 78 report. We received a request for the bond municipal drain. The request is to enclose the top end portion of that drain. You may recognize this name. We were on site for a Section 74 meeting, and that's where this request came about. So we'll have to circulate it to the Conservation Authority, who I believe is Maitland Valley in this area, and then we will go from there.
Okay, any questions of the report? No? Okay, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the request for repair and improvement, Section 78 of the Drainage Act by property owner Judy Paxton for the Bond Municipal Drain, Lot 31, Concession 15, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East for information. And further, that in accordance with Section 78 and 2 in bracket of the Drainage Act, the appointment of an engineer will be considered at the December 19, 2023 regular meeting of council subsequent to the notice advising of the proposed drainage works being sent to the Secretary Treasurer of the Conservation Authority that is jurisdiction over the lands in the affected area. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the next one is the appointment court of revision member. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this next report is to appoint a court of revision member for a Section 78 request in North Perth for the South Maitland River drain, and it's for specifically the German crossing. So this is quite a large watershed. It affects over 1,000 individual properties, and about 750-ish are within Perth East. Mainly within Ellis, Mornington, and Milverton. So they do have a court revision scheduled for November 13th at 6:30 p.m. and that's in the North Perth Council Chambers, or court revision members are able to attend virtually. So we're just looking for an appointment on that.
Okay, so is there someone able to go to that from the court of revision?
I think most of them are in Mornington, and I can attend either virtually or in person.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. So we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Appoint Court of Revision Members, South Maitland River Drain, Germain Crossing, DDC-2023-41, dated November 7, 2023, prepared by the Development and Drainage Coordinator for information, and further that council appoint Jeremy Matheson as the Township of Perth East representative on the Court of Revision for the South Maitland River Drain. A mover and a seconder, moved by Bob, second by Amanda. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and the third one is the tender opening. Eric?
Thank you. My final report is the tender opening for the Road 130 municipal drain in Sebringville. So the drain, or the tendering, we had 6 tenders received. It did come under budget by about $9,000. One point I will make is the proximity of this drain to the Hydro One poles may increase. Either the cost may not be captured in their tendered price. We asked them not to include any additional costs if Hydro One were to ask for tie-offs on those poles, because we couldn't get that information from Hydro One prior to releasing the tender. So there might be a slight increase there. So it was under the engineer's estimate, and the Court of Revision met tonight and upheld the engineer's assessment schedule.
Okay, any questions? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Tender Opening, Road 130 Municipal Drain 2023, DDC-2023-42, dated November 7, 2023, prepared by the Development and Drainage Coordinator for information, and further that Council award the tender for construction of Road 130 Municipal Drain 2023 to TAS Excavating and Rentals Limited with her submission of $66,926.85, excluding taxes, only upon satisfactory resolution to all appeals before the Court of Revision. A mover and a seconder, moved by Amanda, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Eric. We're going to move to backyard chickens, and I believe Ashley's going to do that.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Eggetts. So council received a request at their July 4th council meeting regarding a request to change the zoning bylaw to allow for backyard chickens within residential zones. Staff had asked Huron Perth Public Health for their comments, and we received those late yesterday. So they were circulated to council members earlier today and then posted on the website. A summary of their correspondence, if people haven't had a chance to read that yet, then was they outlined some benefits and risks. Many are similar to what was in the report. And they did state that they would support urban farm and chicken initiatives as a method to increase food security, access to locally grown foods, and enhance overall mental and physical well-being, provided that potential health risks associated with this practice can be reduced by proper implementation of infection control and biosecurity practices supported by legislation and by law enforcement. So outlined in the report, there is a lot of information on the internet regarding the keeping of backyard or urban chickens, several pros and cons to both, as well as best practices should a municipality allow the keeping of backyard chickens. There is a few municipalities that do allow the keeping of backyard chickens now, and most of those had underwent a pilot program before they fully allowed backyard chickens to be in place. That way they could hear from neighboring property owners and as well as the residents that were on the pilot project, how that went. So currently the zoning bylaw for Perth East does not allow for the keeping or raising of livestock or birds in any zone with the exception of the agricultural zone. And the Perth County official plan states that agricultural land uses may be permitted within settlement areas. However, no new or expanded livestock operations are permitted. And the official plan also speaks to the raising of livestock, which is a more accurate description of backyard chickens. With a surplus farm dwelling severance, it permits the limited non-commercial raising of livestock on lots created through a surplus farm dwelling severance within the agricultural designation as an accessory use if the use is permitted in the local zoning bylaw. Without specific prescriptions for raising of livestock in settlement areas, the County of Perth Planning Department, I've been in touch with Jeff, is of the opinion as well that if backyard chickens are not permitted as a right on surplus farm dwelling severances, then they should also not be permitted on residential lots within settlement areas as well, or either. So if council decides to permanently permit backyard chickens, we would need to apply for an official plan amendment to the county official plan, which permits the keeping of chickens in settlement areas of the township, and this must happen prior to the consideration of an amendment to the township zoning bylaw, which would also need to happen. And if we choose, or if council chooses to adopt a pilot project, we would also need to apply for an official plan amendment and then a temporary use bylaw prior to the commencement of the pilot project. A temporary use bylaw can be up to a maximum of 3 years. And currently the County of Perth official plan is being reviewed, and planning staff are considering a change to the temporary use bylaw provisions that would remove the requirement for a temporary use bylaw to be in conformity within the official plan. Currently, no other municipalities within Perth County allow the keeping of chickens in settlement areas. North Perth and St. Mary's are two recent ones that their councils had looked at that within the last few years, and both councils decided to not move forward with allowing the keeping of backyard chickens. So at this time, given the changes that would need to happen to the County of Perth official plan and the township zoning bylaw, staff are recommending to not support the keeping of backyard chickens in residential zones. Hopefully I didn't run through that too quickly, but if you have any questions, I can try to answer.
Okay, questions, Amanda?
No questions, just some comments. Am I able to?
Yeah, go ahead, make comments too.
Yeah, so thank you to staff for pulling this together. I think, if I may, I think we're in this was triggered because of a complaint. And the reality is backyard chickens do exist in settlement areas currently in the township, and including in my ward that I'm aware of, but nothing has come of it because there was no launch complaints. So quite frankly, I think this is a housekeeping thing. I am concerned that, with Eggs are an economical protein for families. People are struggling right now, and I am personally leaning more towards option 2 with a no licensing system, because I think that more fairly reflects the demographics and what is already currently existing in the township, but also in the county. So I'm sure others might have other thoughts on that. I know that there's a number of risks. As someone who comes from the ag community, of course, the biosecurity thing is something that is a bit of a concern, but in general, I would like to see this move forward. So that is my thoughts.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. So on page 171, the second paragraph in the background, or I looked and I couldn't find it. I apologize for not asking earlier. The definition of a household pet, I couldn't find it on the county website. So is there a definition for a household pet?
I'm not sure. Jeff, can you help us out at all?
Sorry about that. I should have given some heads up, but
No problem. Through the mayor, no, I don't believe that there's a definition in the official plan or through your zoning bylaw of what exactly is a household pet. So in those cases, when we're applying our planning rationale, you would take the normal definition that you'd find through the most recent dictionary. Just pull it from, yeah.
oh, thank you.
Hugh?
Jeff, the minute you're there, you get overtime pay, it's okay. You wouldn't know if anybody has brought this up in the official plan or anything like that, would you know that? Like if somebody brought that up to change our official plan?
Through the mayor, no, this is the first that it's been addressed when we've been looking at our update to our official plan. It hasn't been considered up to this point. So if you wanted to bring something forward, we would consider that. The official plan is moving ahead, so they weren't planning on making any changes to provisions at this time, so it might need to be dealt with through an amendment to the existing official plan, and then it would be brought in to the proposed update, which is ongoing. Especially if you're looking to get resolution to the complaints, because our official plan won't be in place until next year sometime.
Okay, Jeremy?
Yeah, so Amanda brought up option 2, which would be to direct staff to prepare amendments to the ZBA, draft revisions for council's consideration to permit backyard chickens, urban chickens, what you might call them. We're not talking about any county influence here or any changes to the county official plan in option 2. Why not? We would have to do that as well.
Yeah.
So number 2 and number 3 would have to happen in conjunction with one another. It's not as simple as as choosing number 2. We would also have to have the temporary use bylaw or the temporary use in place through the county as well. Apply for that. Is that true? Or I'm struggling to understand the whole picture here a little bit when I read the options. We do 1, 2, or 3, but option 2 as in itself cannot be the solution, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Right, yes. Apologies, I missed writing that at the start of option 2. We would need to have a County of Perth official plan, and then we would also need to have changes to our zoning bylaw. So the difference between option 2 and 3 is 2 would be a permanent change to our zoning bylaw. So an official plan amendment and then a permanent change to the zoning bylaw. Option 3 would be an official plan amendment and then apply for a temporary use bylaw to run the pilot program to see if council wants to permanently then change the zoning bylaw or revert back to doing nothing.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Ronda. So the zoning bylaw change, would that include enhanced and appropriate property standards changes to if that was the direction council went? Or would that be a separate item?
That would come from council's direction. If council chooses this, I think it would be a staff recommendation that if we're gonna run a pilot program or make a temporary pilot or a permanent change, there are going to be further concerns addressed, and that licensing would probably be an avenue that council should consider. But the recommendation from staff is to not, but if council is leaning towards doing either a temporary pilot or a permanent change, I think consideration related to licensing is something that should be considered. There will be further enforcement required if council decides to go that route. So licensing would help offset some of those additional costs.
So in the licensing, there'd be standards set out in the licensing?
What I would anticipate, Councilor McAlpine, is that the licensing would be similar to kennel licensing that sets out, typical requirements associated with what a backyard chicken looks like, operation looks like. Operation is not the right word, but I think, and I wouldn't necessarily suggest it needs to be to the same extent of kennel, but it needs to be similar, and inspection would be part of that.
Amanda?
I have to ask, option 3 with the piloting. I struggle with the practicality of if council were to look at that option, because pilot would suggest that people are allowed to have chickens. And then in the event, hypothetically, if council chose not to continue with it, what happens to those chickens? And what about the animal welfare aspect of it? So that's why I'm not super fond of the pilot. You either do it or you don't. So I just, from a practicality standpoint, I just wanted to bring that up, that I have a bit of concerns with that piece in the option 3.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we do have a motion. We'll read it and see if anyone moves it or what happens with it, and then we'll go from there. So the motion we have before us, Council Township of Perth East received the report entitled Backyard Chickens, CLE 2023-09, dated November 7, 2023, prepared by the municipal clerk for information. Further, that council not support the keeping of backyard chickens in residential zones, and further that chickens currently kept at 32 Mill Street East, Milverton, be removed by December 7, 2023. Do we have a mover? Moved by Bob. Do we have a seconder? Andrew? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Okay, so who wants to make what? Amanda?
I'm going to move option 2, which would obviously include the official plan piece, but I would move no licensing system.
So you wanted exactly what it says, direct staff prepare amendments to zoning, including draft revisions, and not include A. Is that what you're saying?
It would also include A, but it would also include the amendment to the County of Perth official plan, because that is another step that needs to be taken, is my understanding from the clerk.
So Ashley's writing for yours, I will take a stab at this, you tell me if I'm on the right path. The Council of the Township of Perth East received the report entitled Backyard Chicken, CLE 2023-09, dated November 7, 2023, prepared by the municipal clerk for information, and direct staff to prepare amendments to the zoning bylaw, including draft revisions for council's consideration to permit the keeping of backyard chickens. And then what did you say, A or B?
No licensing system?
No, so then you want B, regulate chickens through?
No.
No,
Option A, no licensing
no licensing
system.
system?
And then direct staff to apply for an amendment to the County of Perth official plan.
Okay, prepare amendments to the Perth County official plan. Okay, clear as mud? So receive it for information. Prepare zoning bylaw, no licensing system,
And official.
and official plan amendment. Okay, everybody get that? Are you moving that? Moved by Amanda, do we have a seconder? Hugh? Questions, comments? Jeremy?
Yeah, so we're clear, no licensing system versus licensing system. People who elect to not have urban chickens, as I've seen them called in various reports that I've read from other municipalities, are in fact then to be subsidizing the owners of urban chickens, because we will be enforcing bylaws without collecting fees for licensing. And collecting any sort of, whether it be annual or a one-time fee or inspection. So we won't be performing inspections if there's no licensing system. Is this correct? Is that the idea here? And if there's complaints, we'll be enforcing them as we would a normal bylaw complaint, and not charging for someone to have urban chickens. Is that how I'm understanding this?
You want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'll take a stab. Yeah, Counselor, it would basically be, if we made the changes through the OPA and the zoning bylaw to allow them, there would be provisions around the keeping of them, and the enforcement would look like any other zoning nonconformance.
We wouldn't know where they are.
Right.
Is that the difference between licensing and not licensing? We would not know where these operations existed, and there would be no fee paid to have a urban chicken coop.
Yeah, part of the reason, and I use kennels as a loose example, is that, yeah, then you have specific guidelines related to the kennel operation that aren't addressed in the zoning bylaw. Zoning bylaws typically do not drill down to specifics around how you keep chickens, things like that. A kennel bylaw does. It's more specific in those operations. So without having any form of licensing, it's you're allowed to have chickens. We would probably, staff would be a recommendation as it relates to the number of chickens. And that would be kind of the extent of what would exist in the zoning bylaw. So the enforcement would really be around maybe noise complaints, which we have a separate noise bylaw that probably isn't going to capture those complaints, to be frank. And the others would be, they have more chickens than is allowed in the zoning bylaw if there is restriction on that. Otherwise, there wouldn't really be enforcement avenues.
Andrew?
No, as we're about to vote on this, I'm kind of on the fence on this, but I think like Councillor Broadhagen said, it's already happening. So property standards, I think, is our document that we could enhance as we like it will without having to worry about anything else. I would hope that would come back when we finalize this. Some suggestions, maybe other municipalities, we could rob some of their, or borrow some of their wisdom on how to go ahead with that, who've been doing it for a while. And I was actually thinking about, what Councillor Matheson said about, fairness and enforcing and licensing fees, but I'm sure the guy down the road for me blasts his stereo system at 4 in the morning isn't under licensing regimen. So yeah, I kind of ran that one through, and I think that it'll just have to be taken care of should it go forward with property standards and the regular complaint-driven process, right? So that's the key, is everything now is complaint-driven. And if there's someone who's bugging their neighbors, they're going to get a complaint, hopefully, so.
Okay, Jeremy?
Much of the background that I've looked in on with other municipalities that have these things in place, they have licensing processes that regulates how high the coop can be, how many square feet the coop can be. They need to be inspected before they receive a license. I have some concern. I mean, like the first thing that pops to my mind is, chickens running around everywhere, and that's obviously not going to happen here. But a lot of the licensing that happens with these things, based on some of the digging that I've done, is surrounding how how the animals are kept and how they would be perceived, how they'd be seen by the neighboring properties. And that ultimately is what we're looking at when it comes to property standards and such as well, is that we're trying to keep a cohesive neighborhood. And I think by licensing these types of operations, it would allow that to happen a lot easier than just allowing them and moving forward. I'm not exactly sure what could be included in the bylaw versus the licensing, but certainly, there's got to be some different things here that, some more examples of what would be included in a licensing process versus a non-licensing process, I think would be helpful for me to get my head around that. It sounds to me from the discussion tonight that we're going to allow some version of this, and I just want to understand better what it would look like, whether, if it's licensed or unlicensed, what extra measures does someone who's keeping urban chickens have to take?
Hugh?
Potentially, I suppose.
Hugh?
Yeah, in the future, there's nothing stopping us from creating a licensing system. If it doesn't work out, we can always come back and say that, well, it's not working out very well, we'll try licensing, and if licensing don't work, then we can say it's not gonna happen.
Okay, Amanda?
Just a final sort of comment. I want to give some rationale as to why I'm suggesting moving the no licensing system. So it's sort of twofold. One, I think it would very, if we were to move with B, I think would very quickly turn into like a tier system where there's going to be people paying into the licensing system and people not in compliance because they've just always, there's never been an issue. And so here we are, we have had one complaint. And so it would be different, and I would maybe feel differently. And to the deputy mayor's point, if this was a regular occurrence, or maybe we had a half a dozen complaints, I would really lean more towards the option B. But it's one complaint of over 12,000 people in this township. And like I said, I know that this is already coexisting in other parts of the municipality. So just wanted to give some rationale as to why I am suggesting the no licensing piece.
Okay, Mike wants to say.
I just want to clarify one issue. It's one complaint that's been brought to council in terms of a family looking for a change. We've addressed two other complaints in the time I've been here as it relates to chickens. I just want to be transparent with that.
Differing locations, are we allowed to know that?
Within residential zones.
But not the same location that we're talking about here?
No. Two separate complaints.
So
Okay.
Three in total?
Including the one where,
Yeah.
that was brought to council
Right.
by the family here.
Okay, Bob?
So attached to the report was the 2012 request for chickens in the backyards. And at that time, we had, I guess, 2 delegations, 1 for and 1 against. Unfortunately, the pictures are probably partial to that second delegation where there's always good examples and bad examples, and we saw probably the extreme worst. So it was dealt with before, and I'm sure the residents of Millbank were quite relieved that it didn't continue any further. Just, I guess, to continue with this process, it's normally done by an applicant rather than the municipality absorbing the official plan amendment costs and the zoning bylaw costs. I'm sure just to prepare a report, it costs staff $500 to go through the various departments and put it on an agenda, right? So here you're gonna spend, $10,000 and then have the obligation to, throughout the township, not just in Melbourne here, inspect these when there's complaints. So while it seems like a cheap and easy solution, it's rather costly given, council's budget meeting next week and the, I guess, request to keep things to a minimum. So here again is another example where we're flying in the face of that and adding more cost to the municipality on an ongoing basis throughout the years to come, right?
Okay, anyone else? If not, are you ready for the motion? Everybody's, excuse me, clear as mud is what it is, or you want Ashley to read it again? Clear as mud? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're going to move on to finance, and we have our year-to-date finance report. And Paula, the floor is yours. This microphone's not working.
Yeah, microphone's not working, so shuffle around here. So thank you, Mayor Agates. Before council tonight is the October 31st, 2023 year-to-dates. And council should note that we should be ranging from 82 to 83% revenues collected or expenditures incurred. And we're within those ranges. I would add that the managers and myself have gone through the year-to-date and made comments as noted through the report attached. And as well, fuel and heating costs are still trending high, and we're accommodating or trying to accommodate that within the 2024 budget. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, any questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Year-to-Date FIN 2023-26 dated November 7, 2023, prepared by the Treasurer for information. Moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Paula. We have no reports from Public Works, no reports from Building Bylaw Enforcement. We have one report from Recreation and Community Services, the agreement to provide temporary shelter. Becky, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the Peaceful Metals retirement residence in Bruner is looking to use the perk as a temporary shelter if necessary that they evacuate their residence. And before you is the agreement that would be used if council approves.
Okay, questions of the report? Hugh?
Becky, you don't know when people are going to actually move into Bruner, do you?
I don't know. No, I don't.
I'm not sure either, but hopefully soon. If they're getting this in place, I would imagine it's going to be soon. So we do have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Agreement to Provide Temporary Shelter, Peaceful Metals Retirement Residence, RSC 2023-11, RCS, sorry, I'm seeing backwards, dated November 7, 2023, prepared by the Manager of Recreation and Community Services for information, and further that council give 3 readings to bylaw 49-2023, being a bylaw to enter into agreement with Peaceful Meadows Retirement Residents to provide temporary shelter. Moved by Amanda, second by Jeremy. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Becky. We're moving to fire and memorandum of understanding tiered medical response. Bill, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight's report's in regards to the memorandum of understanding with the Perth County Paramedic Service. Deals with tiered medical response in the Perth East Fire Department response area. There's no changes in our level of response. Other than now, the Milverton station would not be requested to attend a alarm for EMS delay if there's an ambulance in the Milverton paramedic station. It's basically the same amount of time for them to get there as it is for us. The MOU also clarifies some responsibilities for fire in the paramedic service. We're going to try and do some coordinated training. It also clearly states the medical supplies that we can acquire at the expense of Perth County paramedics. The MOU was reviewed at the last Perth East Fire Department Joint Advisory meeting, and it will be reviewed once per council term. And I'll gladly answer any questions.
Okay, questions of the report? Seeing none, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Memorandum of Understanding, Tiered Medical Response, Perth County Paramedic Service, FIR 2023-16, prepared by the Fire Chief, dated November 7, 2023, for information, and that council give 3 readings to bylaw 50-2023, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a memorandum of understanding with Perth County Paramedic Services in regards to tiered medical response in the Perth East Fire Department response area. Moved by Jeremy, second by Bob. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Bill. So now we're moving to correspondence. We do have a couple items for correspondence. The first one is the Optimist Club of Mornington and Lions Club, their temporary road closure for December 8th for the 2023 Parade of Lights. Is there any questions on that? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the correspondence from the Optimist Club of Mornington and the Lions Club of Milverton dated October 16, 2023, regarding a request for a temporary road closure on December 8, 2023 for the 2023 Parade of Lights for information, and that Council approve the route for the Parade of Lights starting on Industrial Drive, west on Sippo Street, south on William Street, east on George Street, south on Main Street, and dispersing on Wilford Street in the Milverton Ward on Friday, December the 8th, 2023 from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m., storm date of Saturday, December 9, 2023, in order to accommodate a parade sponsored by the Optimist Club of Mornington and the Lions Club of Milverton, and that the event organizers provide sufficient volunteers necessary to control detoured/rerouted traffic, and that the certificate of insurance state that the Corporation of the Township of Perth East and the County of Perth be added as an additional insured, but only with respects to their interest in the operation of the named insured. We need a motion. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried.
Is this assuming that Pacific won't be done in another month then? Is that what's happening here?
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's the assumption. I'm looking at it realistically, so we'll see. Should it be done and paid before then, we can reconsider this road.
You can leave it exactly how it is.
Okay, and our next item of correspondence is from Barry Nowak, Shakespeare Men's Club, and they're asking also for temporary road closure December 9th for the 2023 Shakespeare Santa Claus Parade. Any questions on that? If not, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the correspondence from Barry Nowak Jr., the Shakespeare Men's Club dated October 18, 2023, regarding requests for temporary road closure for the 2023 Shakespeare Santa Claus Parade for information, and that council approve the route for the Santa Claus Parade beginning at the Shakespeare Community Center on Galt Street, north to William Street, north to William Street, east over Road 107 to Byron Street, south to Andrew Street, west over 107 to Treshelle Street, north to Fraser Street, west to Galt Street, and ending at the Shakespeare Community Center on Saturday, December the 9th, 2023, starting at 1 p.m. in order to accommodate a parade sponsored by the Shakespeare Men's Club, and further that the event organizers provide sufficient volunteers necessary to control detoured/rerouted traffic, and further that the certificate of insurance state that the corporation of the Township of Perth East and the County of Perth be added as an additional insured, but only with respects to their interest in the operation of the named insured. Need mover and seconder, moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're moving on to council and committee reports. My mayor's meeting log is there where I was for the month of October. Any questions? Any questions on what I did for October? No? Okay. Does anyone have any committees they've sat on they wish to report on at this time? Jeremy?
Jerry's not here, so I'll speak. On behalf of Jerry and the Milverton Business Association, we have the Christmas event next Friday night where the road is closed. We approved that road closure, and so it'll be very similar in nature to what we had last year. Road closed, some sidewalk type sales and street festival. Last year it was a blizzard that evening. It was really neat, actually, but I would encourage everybody to come out that evening. It's a lot of fun just to see the downtown in the middle of winter time with you know, all the different events going on. So it's I believe it's starting at 6 p.m. until 8 or 9 p.m. It'll be similar to like a Moonlight Madness type thing.
Okay, anyone else? If not, then we have a motion that the mayor's meeting log dated October 23, 2023, and the verbal reports by members of council for the Jeremy for the Milverton Business Association be received. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we do have 3 bylaws. First, second, third, and final reading. First bylaw is 49-2023, and it's a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement with Peaceful Meadows Retirement Residence for temporary emergency shelter at the Perth East Recreation Complex, and that was 8.7.1 tonight. The second bylaw is 50-2023, a bylaw to authorize the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the County of Perth, the Perth County Paramedic Services Tiered Medical Response, and that was 8.8.1 tonight. And the third one is bylaw 120-2023. It's a bylaw to provide for drainage works and collection of the constructed assessment for the Mueller Municipal Drain 2023. So we need a mover and a seconder for those for the first, second, third, and final reading. Moved by Amanda, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. We do not have a closed session. We do, is there any notice of motions? We have one under new business. The Council of the Township of Perth East received the presentation from Hannah Can, Resiliency and Stewardship Coordinator, Perth County Electric Pathway, Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. Yep, scratch your nose, you get in trouble. Anyone else have any new business? Any announcements? Confirmatory bylaw is that the bylaw 51-2023, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Township of Perth East at its regular meeting held on November 7, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the last motion of the night is that we adjourn at 8:15 PM. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Great night. Enjoy the rest of your night.